Well, Rube, the Eagles are a little banged up coming off of that Giants game. We talked about Jalen Hurts earlier in the week, but some other injuries to worry about too.
Both sides of the ball, but mainly on offense. And I think, nobody's going to really talk about Jack Driscoll and Nate Herbig, but Jack's a big loss for this team and this offense. This offensive line's been rolling. You ask any of the running backs why the Eagles have been able to run the ball so well, and they'll all tell you the O-line. I mean, when you have Boston Scott, Miles, Jordan Howard all running well, you look at who's blocking for them, and as well as Jalen Hurts. And this O-line has been tremendous. I think Driscoll's played really well. They've gone through a bunch of right guards, as we know. I think Herbig's a functional player, but he's not Jack Driscoll. So I think that's kind of an underrated. I mean, people are going to talk about all the other injuries, but that's a big loss, and especially because that O-line's really been the heart of everything the Eagles have done over this last month when they've kind of tried to make a little bit of a move in the division and the conference. So to me, I think there's a lot of guys banged up. There's a lot of guys you're wondering about, but I mean, we know Driscoll's done for the year, and they're going to miss him.
Yeah, they will. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Ray Didinger will join us in just a little bit. We'll get to talk to him about the Giants' loss, look ahead to the Jets. If he thinks the Eagles can win this game, I have a suspicion that he will. But let's start with the injuries, and then at the end we want to get into some Doug Pederson comments to our colleague John Clark. But Jason Kelce does not practice on Thursday. He's dealing with a knee injury. Miles Sanders is practicing. He says he's going to play on Sunday. Devontae Smith returns from illness. But there's just a few of these guys now that are a little banged up, and here we are. It's week 13. They don't have a bye week until week 14. It's pretty late. Which of these injuries worries you the most, Rube?
Well, Kelce's going to be out there. So I don't worry about him. I mean, I think everybody saw Sunday. It's going to take a lot more than just a bad knee and we know that about him.
I was thinking about this today. What percent, if you had to pick a percentage of Jason Kelce to still be worth playing over whatever other options they have, which I guess would be moving Herbig or playing Brett Toth at center, whatever they do.
Luke Juriga.
What percentage? Yeah, what's the cutoff?
4%. 4% Kelce's better than 100% anyone else. No, I mean, it's probably 50%, 60%. I don't know. I just know. And I think one thing, Jason Kelce's really good about, not just going out and playing, but playing well through injuries and knowing how he has to adjust his game, how he has to kind of favor one part of his body for another part. I mean, he's done this for so long. So he'll go out there in a knee brace or a brace on his elbow, or this is torn, or this is sprained, or this is pulled, and play at a high level. He's got an incredible knack for doing that. So he doesn't just go and play, but he plays really well through these injuries. The one that worries me the most is Jalen, just because an ankle and mobility, and Jalen Hurts without mobility, I don't know exactly what you have there. So that's definitely a concerning one. He's getting better, but ankles are, as we've seen, ankles are funny things because they could be healed and feel better, but you can still tweak that thing and be right back where you were. So that's definitely,
especially as a quarterback or running back, when you're just around other bodies and other feet, you step on it wrong one time, and all of a sudden you're really limited from your mobility. And you're right. I mean, him in particular, without his mobility, just right now, he's just not that player. He can't. I don't know how he'd function if he can't move. So that's something to watch. He did practice on Thursday. The one good news, a little bit of news, is Miles Sanders, who actually had to leave the last game when that ankle flared up again. He says he's going to play on Sunday. Says he actually feels pretty good.
Yeah, he's run the ball really well when he's been out there. It's been kind of a stops and starts season for him with the injuries, really a couple years. And again, you just hope he can not just go out there, but go out there and stay out there. And they really need him. I mean, they really need him. And assuming they're not, I don't know what, I assume they're not going to have Jordan Howard. Who knows?
He hasn't practiced yet this week.
Hasn't practiced.
It doesn't look like it.
No, it doesn't look like he's going to play. We'll see. Maybe he's out there tomorrow, Friday. But The Miles one is a concern, just because that they've always had either Jordan or Miles. So to be without both of them would be really bad. They need him to stay healthy. I have a feeling they're going to have to make some plays in the passing game to win this one, because without Jalen running, I don't think the whole running game, and maybe he will run, maybe he'll take off 12 times again, it'll be fine. But I kind of think, and maybe being in the pocket will force him to focus on that part of his game more and make throws. I don't know, but it's the running game in general is a concern. No Howard, Hurts ankle, Miles working through some things. Those are all concerns that kind of go together as part of the running game. And Driscoll.
Missing Driscoll.
It all kind of goes together.
Let's talk about Miles, though, because this is year 3 for him. And it felt like in each of the last 2 years, at the beginning of the year, we thought, okay, this is going to be the breakout season. And he's been very good when healthy. He struggled to stay healthy. And I think it's fair to say he has not become quite the player that a lot of people thought he was going to become. And that's not really a knock on him. I think health has something to do with that. I think usage has something to do with that. But what do you make of him pretty deep into his third NFL season?
No, I think that's all fair. He began his career with so much promise, and it's not like he's played poorly. He just hasn't played that much. The receiving part of it is weird. He had 500, he had 50 for 500 as a rookie, and he's really, at this point, he's not even a factor in the passing game. I don't know if that was a fluke. There were some plays that running backs, he made some plays in the receiving game as a rookie that running backs don't really make. And he caught them all. And he just, he was running patterns like a wide receiver and wheel routes and all that stuff. And he caught everything. And he just, then his hands became an issue, and now they just don't throw to him. And this was an offense that was supposed to throw to the backs. I think he's really talented, but I think a lot of this is just endemic for running backs. They just, it's a position where not a lot of guys play every game and every snap and every year. You just don't see guys do that. It's really rare. So I don't think it's that unusual, but man, I would love to see him be able to play 16 games, stay healthy, and see what he could do. We just, we haven't seen him build on that rookie year, but gosh, you see moments where you look at him, you're like, this guy is a flat out stud, and then he gets hurt. So it's been frustrating. And, I asked him about that today on Thursday, and he said it's been frustrating the last couple of years, and tries not to dwell on it, and just try to stay, get healthy, stay healthy, and just focus on the next game. But, it is frustrating for him.
Yeah, and last year he had that injury at the beginning of the season. It really just, it started him off in the hole, and it never felt, he had the big runs last year. And that's kind of the weird thing about his career, is that he gets pieces of his game going, but it never feels like everything is going at once. It never feels like he can get everything going at once and stay healthy.
He does, the coach doesn't use him.
Yeah, that's another part of it. Yeah. And the further we get away from that rookie season, that's starting to look like the outlier as far as pass catching,
Yeah, but again, I don't know how much of that has to do with Jalen, who doesn't really look to throw to the backs. He just doesn't, which you would think he would, because those are high percentage, easy throws. He throws to Gainwell, bang, 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 and he's wide open, and they get 32 yards on 3 throws. They don't do that very much. Maybe it's Nick. I don't know, but this offense,
that was just a product of the coverage.
No, but I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more thrown to the backs with a quarterback who's struggling in some ways with, the more difficult throws right now. Those are throws he can make. So, but yeah, with Miles, it's funny. He's averaging 5.7 this year, and he doesn't have a long run. He doesn't have a run longer than 25 yards. Last year, he averaged 5.7, had 3 80-yard runs.
Yeah.
So,
he had the 27-yarder in the last game, and it's where he got hurt.
Yeah, and he got hurt
on a microcosm of his career there.
He got hurt on one of the long runs last year at the end of the play. I like this, the 84-yarder or whatever. So I would love to see him play 16. At the end of his rookie year, he was hurt too, and he wasn't 100% going into that playoff game. Man, it's weird thinking of playoff games with this team. But the Josh McCown game, I mean, his numbers were okay, but he just wasn't. I think he was like 16 for 64 or something in that game, but he just wasn't right. You could tell. So I think a lot of it is just the position. And maybe some of those games where Doug was giving him 12 carries and we all wanted him to give him 20 carries, maybe there was a reason for it because, he was trying to protect him. But
maybe
I know they need him Sunday. And it looks like he's trending the right way.
Yeah. It's just wild to think he's going to be in year 4 next year. He's going to be in a contract year next season. The Eagles are going to have to figure out what to do with him.
It's a tough call. I mean, if you could keep either Jordan Howard or Miles Sanders, I mean, you'd probably keep Miles, but it's an interesting question. Maybe they can keep both of them. At some point, Jordan's value, if he keeps playing the way he has, and hopefully he comes back fairly soon. But he's kind of playing himself into being an interesting contract. I think at some point other teams are going to be like, he's actually a pretty good player, because that hasn't happened yet. I would try to lock him up. I mean, he's only 20, just turned 27 like 2 weeks ago. I would try to lock him up, and I'd still want to lock up Miles, but Miles is going to cost more. But it's a really interesting position and personnel wise, and the whole thing's fascinating to me. I certainly would want to keep Miles, but you don't want to overpay for a guy who can't stay healthy. There's so much to explore in Valley Forge and Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Montgomery County is composed of charming towns and main streets, each with its own personality, style, and unique vibe. Whether you're looking to get away with family or enjoy a special trip with friends, leave behind the stress of planning and use our guide to find some of the most amazing things to do. Explore which town and which main street suits you the best, or visit them all. Visit makeitmainstreet.com to plan your getaway today.
Joining us now on the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan, as he does every week, Ray Didinger. Ray, we have to start with the Giants game. What a disaster.
Sure was. That was just a really, really bad loss. We've the three of us have seen a lot of them. I've seen more than you guys because I go back farther, but that's right up there. The season was really taking on kind of a nice, optimistic sort of feel, and everybody was feeling kind of good about the team and the way they were playing and the way they were running the ball, and everything kind of seemed to be on the uptick. And I really didn't think they were going to lose up there. In fact, when they were driving down late in the fourth quarter, the possession that ultimately led to the Boston Scott fumble, as they were moving the ball down the field, I was sitting there preparing for the post-game show thinking, okay, what am I going to say? Because I was thoroughly convinced they were going to take it down and score and win the game 14-13. And I'm trying to think in my own mind, okay, how am I going to characterize this? I certainly don't want to say, oh boy, that was an exciting win, or oh boy, they came up big in the fourth quarter, or try to paint any kind of a happy face on it, because it was a dreadful performance. But I never thought they were going to lose. I mean, right to the very end, I kept thinking that the Giants are so bad that they're going to find some way to hand this one back to the Eagles. And they almost did. But when it actually ended and you realized that they had lost, I kept thinking, I can't believe it. They let this team beat them. But they did, and now got to head right back up the turnpike to 16W and trying to find a way to beat a team that's even worse than they are, and that's the Jets.
I think they felt the same way. I think talking to some of the players this week, I mean, they thought it was going to be all right. We played really bad, but we're going to salvage the win at the end. Jalen's going to make some plays, but this team's not good enough to do that. This team's not good enough to play games like that. When you're the Chiefs and you're down, 13-7 in the fourth quarter, yeah, you're going to win that game, but they're not in that position. And I think, hopefully they learned a little lesson up there Sunday that, doesn't matter who they're playing. They're not good enough to just go out and play 15 minutes or 20 minutes. They need to play 60 minutes. They don't have that margin for error.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought, and I think we even talked about this last week, that, I thought the fourth quarter of the Saints game would kind of get them past that point. I mean, they're up 33-7 or whatever at the end of three quarters. And in the fourth quarter against the Saints, they just really took their foot off the gas. And the Saints came back, and at the end, it wound up being a little hairy. And I thought, well, that's sort of an object lesson for this team. They're not that good that they can afford to do that kind of thing. They got to play it out for 60 minutes. And I kind of thought that would focus them going into the Giants game, that we can't take anything for granted. We got to go out. We got to play hard for 60 minutes. And then they come out and they put on a performance like that. It's, it really does just kind of remind you of what they are right now. I think, for a while there was a lot of that talk and chatter about playoff positioning, and they're in the wild card mix, and boy, the easy schedule coming up. There's no reason why they can't make the playoffs. And I think the fans certainly got a little ahead of themselves, and I think probably to some degree the players did too.
All right, Ray, let's talk about Jalen Hurts, because we've seen some good from him this year, and that was the bad. I mean, that was probably the worst game he's played since he's been in the league. What do you make of it, and how do you weigh it in this season, right, as we try to evaluate him as he goes forward here?
Yeah, this was I would agree. I think it was his worst performance, and it was pretty bad. There's really kind of no excusing it. What was different about this is his accuracy, the accuracy issues that we've talked about so much. I've kind of been there throughout. I mean, sometimes he's thrown it a little better, sometimes a little worse. But the one thing that he's been pretty good about all year has been protecting the football. I mean, you use the term decision making, and that's what coaches say. And up to now, I think his decision making with the football has been pretty sound. I mean, he hasn't made a lot of mistakes. He hasn't thrown many interceptions. And last week, man, he just made a ton, and really bad ones. I mean, you look at the picks; they were all bad, and they were bad throws, but they were bad decisions before they were bad throws. I mean, the ball he's trying to get into Quez Watkins down the field, right into double coverage. Can't throw that ball. The one right before halftime is, a multi-layered bad decision. I mean, it's a decision of the fact that you got to throw that ball away immediately. You can't try to run or make a play, because then you can't stop the clock, and you got to try and salvage the field goal. So he messes up by not getting rid of the ball quick enough, and then he compounds it by throwing the interception. And then the one down the sideline that, he stared the receiver down and then threw a balloon down the sidelines, and that's an easy pick. So those were all bad throws, but to your point, they were bad decisions. And that's if you're the coaching staff here, that's what really troubles you is he can't be making that many bad plays, because in the NFL you make that many bad plays, that many bad decisions, even a bad team like the Giants can beat you.
Yeah, and what do you make? I mean, the best throws he made probably the whole game were the two that Reagor dropped. So you're like, he can wipe out 58 minutes of mediocrity or worse with a big throw down, have a chance to win the game. And then the other Jalen, shows up and costs you the game. This kid was a first round pick, and we've seen guys who, look, we know he can catch a football. We know he can run. He's fast, but there's something going on there with him. Mentally, and to my eye, it looks like the longer he has to think about a play, the less chance he has to catch it. When Jalen fires him the ball on a 12-yard out, he doesn't have time to think. He just catches it. But on those deep balls, you can just see him like looking up and thinking, am I going to drop it? Am I going to catch it? I wonder if I'll drop. You just see you can see it playing on his mind, and that's a really bad place for anybody to be in this league. You can't function if you don't have confidence, and right now that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think his confidence is shot, and well, I mean, I'll throw it back to you guys, and you can sort of give me your view of it. To me, it's so much like Nelly. It's so much like Aguilar over again. First round draft pick, wide receiver, fighting it mentally, Yeah, I mean, he's a better player than this. I've heard that said. I don't totally disagree with it. The one way I would disagree with it slightly is after having seen them both in college, after having seen Aguilar at Southern Cal and having seen Reagor at TCU, I think Aguilar was a much better player. When the Eagles drafted Aguilar in the first round, I had no problem with that. I mean, to me, he was a first-round talent. Reagor, to me, I didn't like the pick the minute they made it. I had a third-round grade on him. I was stunned that they took him in the first round. So in terms of what I've seen of them do at a college level, I mean, to me, Aguilar was a much, much better player in college. So the struggles that he had here were more surprising to me because I kind of thought that he would transition into the NFL and almost have a Devontae Smith kind of transition. I mean, I thought he was that good. Obviously wasn't. But Reagor, I had my doubts about him right from the beginning. And what he's going through now, but what he's going through now seems to me very much like what we dealt with Aguilar. And, I wondered, and I know you guys asked Nick Sirianni this week if he would consider doing what Doug Pederson did with Aguilar, which was sit him out for a week after that awful game in Seattle to just kind of let him clear his head and then come back. You guys asked the question, and Sirianni said, no, he's going to be playing this week. So I wonder if they even – that's not what they're doing. They've already indicated that's not the direction they're going. But don't you think they had to talk about it internally? I'm sure it was discussed.
You would think so. And it's so hard not to think back to Nelly. The situations seem so similar. But you're right, Ray, because you think back to Nelly, and the one thing, he was at least running good routes, and there was precision there, whereas Reagor, it's like he has some raw athleticism, but we knew he needed more refinement as a receiver. So I guess if you had to ask me which one struggle surprised me more, it would have been Nelly. But all of a sudden, it feels like we're kind of back in the same spot. Reuben and I talked about it on our last pod. We'd probably sit him for a game. I don't know what they have to lose. It just looks like he's a guy without confidence, and you can't play that position if you're not confident. You just can't do it. So maybe they try to find ways to get him the ball and build it back up, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, they've been trying. I mean, it's obvious they build some plays into the game plan that are specifically with just clearly for the idea of, okay, here's how we can get him the ball on this, a quick screen or a smoke screen or a jet sweep. Just let's get him the ball here because down the field, he can't run patterns. He can't track the ball. I mean, so if you're going to try to get him the ball, you kind of got to get it to him in very limited ways right at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, you can't be doing that. I mean, you can't be doing that with a player while you're trying to win a football game. You got to call the plays that you think can win. And I don't know how, if you're the coaches, that you can play them right now. I just don't. I mean, you look back at the Giants game, and it's frustrating on a million different levels. But the one thing that every time I pick up the stat sheet and I look at it, and I see, really, you targeted him 7 times. You targeted him 7 times in the game. With everything that's gone wrong with this guy, you try to get him the ball 7 times in that game. I mean, there are a lot of things in that game that are hard to explain, but to me, that was the one that jumped out. 7 targets for Jalen Reagor. That you're not going to win. You're not going to win with that formula. That math just doesn't compute.
It's funny you said you had him graded as a 3rd-round pick. He would have been a bad 3rd-round pick. You know what I mean? You look at it and you want a 3rd-round pick to be a functional borderline starter or key backup. But you're right. When you see those plays that they're clearly they're not plays to look, this fits into what we're trying to do offensively. They're plays that scream out to you, this play's trying to get Jalen Reagor going. And you can't play football like that. You can't play football trying to get someone going. You have to run the offense, run your best plays, get the ball in your best players' hands. I understand that. Look, the kid was a 1st-round pick last year, and obviously you want to get something out of him. But training camp's the time for that. OTAs are the time for that. Week 12, week 13 is not the time to let's try to get him going. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and Nick keeps saying every time he's asked about this, Nick keeps going back. Well, he's explosive. He's an explosive player. Yeah, I don't see any of that. I mean, I don't see any explosiveness in his game. He looks hesitant. He looks tentative. He's never been a good route runner. I mean, he's never been a good route runner. And I don't know that he's ever going to get that part of the game together. But just in terms of the idea of, he's explosive when the ball's in his hands. Well, I'm not seeing that either. And
I mean, he had a punt return for a touchdown. He looked explosive. I think, he's fast. I don't know if he's explosive, because explosive kind of indicates that you're doing it in the context of the play. I know he can run. We saw him catch a 55-yard pass his first game, his first catch in the league, and it's still his longest catch. He has more yards on that catch than in any game since. So I think physically there's something there. I don't think he's at his best mentally. He's a great player physically, but I think he'd at least be a functional player in the league. So you have the combination of he limited as far as routes and tracking footballs and those kind of things combined with this lack of confidence, and then you have a guy who's useless. I don't know another word for it. I think it's a little of both.
Yeah. I mean, Nick certainly seemed to indicate he's going to be right back out there on Sunday. And they're probably going to try to get him some plays and hope that he breaks a play and gets back on track, because, what you guys said, I agree. I mean, what's going on with him. It is so like Aguilar. I mean, it's here. I mean, it's absolutely here. He has some ability. I mean, if you looked at when I watched him on the tape at TCU, I saw the ability. He needed an awful lot of work. He really did in terms of just basic route running, his instincts as a route runner, understanding how to make plays, how to do what he has to do down the field. That was really lacking, and he was a guy that was, in my view, very, very raw. You saw on a couple of plays when he got the ball in his hands. Yeah, he could run. He actually, one of the notes I had in my scouting report on him was that he runs like a running back when he gets the ball. When they did get him the ball, either on kick returns or some plays at TCU, when he got the ball and he ran with it, he actually ran more like a running back than he ran like a receiver. He broke some tackles and he made some moves and he was able to make people miss. You saw that. But in terms of doing the things that you really need a receiver to do, which is run a good route, crisp, lose a defender, get separation, that wasn't there even then, and it's certainly not there now.
Yeah, I feel like we're almost even beyond talking about him in the context of being a first-round pick. It's like, just try to get anything out of him at this point. And it's early to be talking like that. We're, in his second year, but it doesn't look good right now. That's for sure.
No, I mean, right now, if you looked at them, if you took the draft thing off them and you just looked at them as players, I mean, Quez Watkins looks like a much better player. I mean, you're talking about a one versus a 6. But if you didn't know anything about their background and you just watched them, I mean, you would assume that Watkins was the better player, and I think he is. But I don't know how everybody assumes that this is coming down from the top. Everybody assumes that Jeff and Howie are telling the coaches to play Reagor. I don't think that's true. I mean, I really don't. I mean, everybody thinks that the front office is calling the shots and telling the coaches what to do, and I've never seen it work that way around here, and I don't think it does now. I think the coaches here really feel like Reagor has a lot of talent, and they're trying to unlock it. I don't think it has anything to do with the coach, with the general manager or the owner coming up, tapping him on the shoulder saying, yeah, get the ball to Reagor. I mean, these guys they're all ultimately trying to win football games.
And it's not like there's some, hotshot guy on the bench who's not playing who is the heir apparent who you could get in there. It's not like they have a lot of options. Quez is already playing, and they're trying to get J-Jaw involved, and I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, but you're looking at Greg Ward and J-Jaw. I mean, that's your next best option. So I think, I understand why they would want to exhaust every possibility to get him going. I mean, it makes sense.
All right, Ray, let's move ahead now to the Jets. They can't lose to the Jets, can they?
You would certainly think not. I mean, they haven't. We've talked about the fact that they have never lost to this team in the regular season. They're 11-0 against them, and we've seen all manner of games with Eagles Jets. And some games the Eagles blew the Jets out. Some games the Jets would break out to a big lead and the Eagles would come back and win. The games have taken all different kinds of shapes, but the one thing that's been a constant is when it's all said and done, the Eagles will come away with a win. I would certainly expect that now. I mean, when you almost can't go 0 for the Meadowlands if you're the Eagles. I mean, you just can't let that happen. I mean, if you do that these two weeks would define your season, really. I mean, if you lose back-to-back to the Giants and the Jets, there's like no coming back for that. I mean, you just forget the idea of getting into the playoffs or the last wild card. I mean, there's Gary Myers, the writer from New York, who you guys both know, was on with Angelo Cataldi today on WIP, and he said that if the Eagles lose to the Jets and then make it 0-2, Giants and Jets back-to-back, he said they should just go on their bye week and not come back for 2 years. He said that they should just be excommunicated from the NFL for at least 2 years if they lose back-to-back to the Giants and the Jets. Might be an extreme position, but that's it sort of expresses, I think, what a lot of people are thinking.
Isn't that what
do you think
I was going to say, that's what they do in European soccer. Like the worst team gets bumped out of the A League into the B League, and then like the worst team in the B League goes down to the C League. So, yeah, I guess it's possible.
What do you think we do with our 2 years off?
Who knows?
Yeah, we'd have to fill up like 200 podcasts with no games. So that might be tough.
It'd be a tough podcast here. Hey, Ray, we wanted to ask you about Zach Wilson. Someone the Eagles seemed like they had interest in. They never, had an opportunity to even get in the area where he was drafted. But what did you think about him coming out of BYU, and what have you seen from him this year?
I was not as excited about him as a lot of people were. Has a lot of talent. Has a really good arm. But I just wondered about the offense that they ran. I wondered about the competition that they played. I wondered about how much he was really tested. I mean, he really only played the 1 year, and it was a weird year last year. And I just wonder about that. I sometimes just wonder about that conference, the way they play there, the style of football. It's so offensive. The way the games are called, defense is really kind of an afterthought. And I think a lot of guys that come out of that area and that conference, their statistics have to be almost judged on a curve. And I liked some things about him, but I thought, man, it's going to be a big jump coming to the NFL. I just thought he was going to have a lot to learn. I didn't think it was going to be an easy transition for him at all. And I thought it was compounded by the fact that he was going to a really struggling team, and it was going to be in New York. And, the first thing, and I knew it was going to happen, and it happened on draft night, the Joe Namath comparisons. Is going to be he's the new Namath. He's going to be the new Joe Namath. And, how many guys have they run through that town that were going to be the next Joe Namath? From Browning Nagel to Mark Sanchez.
Don't forget Glenn Foley.
Cherry Hills, Glenn Foley, Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington. We could sit here all day and name those guys. They've been looking for the next Namath for 50 years now. And I knew they were going to hang it on this kid right away. And he's really struggled. I mean, and even last week when he comes back from the injury and they win the game, you look back at that game and they sure didn't win it because of him. They won it in spite of him. He's right now, it looks to me like he's way in over his head. I'm not saying he can't find his way and become a good NFL player, but he's far away from being ready to play and win games in the NFL right now.
I mean, how do you like the match? I mean, this Eagles defense is a pretty veteran group that should be able to give him looks he hasn't seen, confuse him a little bit, change things up. You would think. Maybe get to him a little bit, something that's kind of a foreign concept lately. What do you think of that matchup?
Yeah, I think that's you kind of put your finger on it there, Rubens. I think you got to find a way to get to him. He doesn't handle pressure well at all. And if you look at the stats for their team this year, the offensive performance with the other quarterbacks versus with Wilson, I mean, it's a dramatic difference. I mean, the points are almost double with the other guys, with Flacco and with White and with Johnson. The yardage is almost double with those guys. And, none of those guys are superstars, but the offense has functioned a lot better with them than it has with Wilson. They get the ball out quicker. Wilson holds the ball a long time, and that's one of his problems. He just can't seem to process the information right now, which isn't surprising to me because I kind of thought making the transition from what he ran in college to the NFL was not going to be easy. And you see a lot of that kind of hesitation, a lot of that kind of uncertainty in his eyes and in his throws. When he figures out exactly what he wants, if it's there right away, if like when he gets the ball, the play that he wants is right there in front of him, you can see it. All of a sudden he'll get a throw and he'll look like an NFL quarterback. If it's right there in front of him and he sees it immediately. But if he has to look around, if he has to try and come off the first look, if a defense somehow changes a coverage and confuses him and he starts tapping the ball, that's when he gets in trouble. And that's what the Eagles have to do. That's what they kind of have to bring to this. They have to either get pressure on him from the front four. Gannon has to throw some blitzes at him that he hasn't seen or doesn't expect. And the guys on the outside, the coverage guys, they have to play tight. They can't give him easy throws. They have to make him work for every single throw. They can't give him a big cushion. They can't make it easy for him. Make him work for it, and he'll make mistakes.
So safe to say you're leaning Eagles in this game. And can we hope for a better product than the game we saw there the last time? I mean, Eagles-Giants was awful to watch.
It was. I don't know that this is going to be a whole lot better.
Give us something, Ray.
I'm sorry. You guys probably have a better feel for exactly how healthy the Eagles quarterback is. I mean, it looks like there's kind of no doubt about it or no question at this point that Hurts is going to start. But do you think he's going to be starting significantly impaired or just mildly gimpy?
It's hard to tell. I think it's going to affect him. And that's a concern because Jalen Hurts at 80% mobility, 80% scrambling and running and moving in the pocket, I don't know if there's enough other tools in his toolbox to be productive under those conditions. So that's a concern.
Yeah, they have a couple good pass rushers that can get after him. And if he can't escape, you do start to worry about him a little bit.
Yeah, their pass rush was surprisingly good last week. Not that Houston is any barometer of good football, but I was a little surprised that their pass rush really got after Taylor last week. I mean, they got a lot of pressure, and with four guys, they didn't blitz much. And to me, that's a little bit of a concern. I mean, you ask about the things that could possibly concern you in this game when you're playing a team as bad as the Jets. And defensively, that's it. I mean, their pass rush, I was watching the tape and said, wow, their pass rush is better than I thought it was. And if Hurts is really a little limited, and even, 80% of himself, I think that could be a problem. And the other thing was that we talked about Wilson's issues, but they ran the ball really good last week against Houston. That's how they won the game. They certainly didn't win it because of their quarterback play. I mean, they ran the ball for 157 yards. The offensive line played good, and the backs, even though they don't have Michael Carter, the guys who filled in did a good job. So that's what the Eagles cannot afford to let happen in this game. They can't afford to let the Jets come out and begin to control the ball and make plays on the ground and allow Wilson to find a comfort zone where he's just handing off and occasionally throwing a little play action. They have to stop the run early and make Wilson make plays. If they can do that, they could win this game and maybe win it going away. But the Jets, if they can run the ball and sort of make Wilson just a guy in the background, just kind of managing the game, not trying to win the game, the Jets could be a pain in the neck on Sunday.
I mean, they've got wins over the Titans and Bengals. That gets your attention,
It does because they're a pretty good team. The Bengals are really good. I mean, I've just seen them now like a couple of times. I hadn't seen them a whole lot, and I kept thinking, yeah, the Bengals. But I've seen them a couple of times, and yeah, they're pretty good. And the fact that the Jets were able to beat them, yeah, you can't just dismiss that. But the big issue is it really is Wilson. They've got a tremendous investment in him. They really did believe when they drafted him that they had drafted a guy that was going to change the whole equation up there, and he was going to be a game changer. And maybe at some point he is, but right now he looks to me like a young guy who's just really, really struggling to find himself.
I'm guessing you're not picking the Jets. Not just a wild guess.
I'm not, but Rube, I don't think it's going to be easy. It should be. And you would think after what happened last Sunday that the Eagles will come in here and make this a no doubt about it kind of game. Just come in and take charge of it early. And they better, because one of the things with Wilson is a really slow starter. If you look at his performances, not that he's been great at any point, but he's been really dreadful in the first half. And when he's played his best football, it's been in the second half. So I think that it's really important that they come out and get control of this game like right away in the first half. And if they do that, I think they could have an easy time. But there hasn't been very much easy about this season. So I'm thinking something like a 24-13 kind of game with like a late touchdown, but some of the points generated by takeaways, because I do think they're going to get a few.
Well, Ray, if the Eagles win, we'll talk to you after the bye week. If they lose, we'll see you in a couple years.
Fair enough. You know where to find me.
All right. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Take care, guys.
Score big with the AAA Eagles MVP membership. Along with superb roadside assistance and discounts you've come to expect from AAA, get exclusive Eagles-related perks. Check out AAA.com/Eagles for all the details. Hey, it's the Nissan year-end sales event with last chance offers you'll want to hang on to. Shop your local Nissan store or visit nissanusa.com today. Better hang on to those deals before they slip away.
Thanks, as always, to Ray Didinger. Always enjoy catching up with him. Rube, John Clark had Doug Pederson on the Takeoff with John Clark podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that yet, be sure to do that after you finish this podcast, of course. But it was interesting. And it's funny, Doug was John's first guest on the pod, so right. He's had a lot of good ones over the last few months. But Doug was the first, and he had him back on Thursday. Some interesting stuff. I mean, it's fascinating to hear Doug's perspective on Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and Jalen Reagor. I know you've had a chance to listen to it, Rube. What really stuck out to you?
I listened to parts of it. It's long, and I didn't have a chance to listen to all of it before we started. But I listened to him talk about the similarities between Nelly and Jalen Reagor, something you wrote about a couple of days ago, and you kind of quantified. I mean, they're at the exact same point at their careers. Reagor is as when Nelly got benched or rested or whatever you want to call it, his mental health week. So it was really interesting to hear Doug talk about the pressure and the stress that Reagor's under, and he really didn't hold back, saying he's got to learn how to deal with the expectations and the pressure and the mental side of it. And again, Doug's been around. Doug was with Reagor his whole rookie year, so he's speaking from experience. He's been around the kid, and he said, he made it clear, look, I'm not around this year, but I do think there could be value in doing with Jalen what we do with Nelly. And he made the point that, Nelly to this day credits Doug and getting him away from things for that 1 week in 2016 he's now in his 7th year in the league. And, he's not a great player, but he's done some great things at times, certainly in the Super Bowl. Had almost 900 yards last year with the Raiders, and he's playing for a pretty good Patriots team this year. And he's had a nice career. So Nelly still credits Doug, giving him that week off to clear his head. He ran scout team, got his confidence back. And Doug said, just to play free, loose, and easy and not worry about anything, which he did. And, it's hard to watch Jalen Reagor. It was hard to watch Nelly. I think it was that Seattle game. And in 16, it was hard to watch a guy who was so mentally shot as Nelly was. And, Nelly didn't come back and light it up after that Green Bay game where he didn't play, but in the long term, it benefited him. And it sounds like Doug believes that it could benefit Jalen Reagor too. And he just said, different players, and he believes that Jalen Reagor's got some talent, got some ability. He talked about Matt Collins and how it took him a few years to kind of find his place. Now, Mac was a 5, and Reagor's a 1, so it's a little bit different. But it was interesting to hear him talk about Reagor and really focus on his the challenges he's facing mentally, and how he needs to kind of work on the same type of things that Nelly did 5 years ago.
Yeah, the parallels are wild.
It's crazy. And you quantified it in your story, which is incredible. It's the same number of games, 23. The receiving numbers are, like 30 yards off. They're so similar. And, the situations aren't identical. I'll tell you what, I might have said this the other night. I always felt like Nelly would be a good player. I don't necessarily believe that about Jalen, but it certainly can't hurt.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and it's cool to hear Doug talk about it. And the other cool thing for me from the pod was he talked about Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and how he just wants those guys to have some time here. It wasn't that long ago where Doug was a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback, and I know Jalen's not technically a rookie, but still a very young player, and this is his first year in that offense. So Doug remembers what it's like to have all that pressure and things aren't going well. They had some really, really low points in 2016. And it was, everyone thinks back at the Mike Lombardi thing. People forget that was after Doug's rookie year. That was after Doug's first year as a head coach. So there was still a lot of doubt about him after his first year. And I don't think that's lost on him. So it was kind of cool to hear him talk about that. He actually mentioned that he reached out to Sirianni after Sirianni got the job just to wish him well and say, hey, if you ever need anything, you have a way to reach me. I don't think that's happened, but I give Doug credit. It's so weird. Like the NFL is such a weird world where a guy gets fired, but there aren't a ton of hard feelings. It's like you kind of understand it in a way. It's such a weird business.
I was really struck by how normal Doug sounded, Dave.
By
the end,
relaxed.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. I think by the end last year, like we would talk to him, and he would sometimes he wouldn't make sense. Sometimes, we would look at each other and be like, "What is he trying to say?" And he was listening to him with Clarkey. He just sounded relaxed and really insightful, really insightful in a way that I don't think we saw a lot of last year. Now, part of that might have been, on John's podcast, he's got a lot of room, he can talk for 40 minutes about something. And, but I was really struck by how much sense he was making. I don't want to say that in a bad way, saying he didn't make sense last year, but there were times where, we would listen to Doug and be like, what the hell is he talking about? And, that's the reality. And some guys, and look, I don't know if Doug wants to coach again. I kind of think he will.
He said he wanted to on the pod.
Did he?
Yeah.
I was I'd be a lot more, eager to hire him listening to him now than if I saw Doug at the end of last year. I think some guys don't need a break. Like I thought Andy needed a break after 2012. And I asked him, I was like, no, I'm going to coach. I'm going to go coach. It's what I do. But I think Doug needed that. And he seems refreshed, energetic. He sounded great. It was good to hear him. And I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if he gets a job next year, because the one thing he mentioned was that he's kind of watching the league still with the coach's mindset. He's not watching it like a fan. He's watching it thinking, I might be facing these defenses next year, which is kind of a cool thing. Yeah, but he seems like he's in a good place. He's a grandfather now, which is certainly cool. So, please check that out with Take Off with John Clark, Doug Pederson on there. Very cool. Rube, that's all we have today, right? Unless you have anything else.
No, not me.
Yeah, I know. Never you. I do want to mention it's really cool. Spotify does their year-end wraps for every user. And we've gotten a bunch of people show us that we're their top podcasts or one of their top podcasts from everywhere. I mean, overseas too. So it's very cool. We appreciate
Very much.
seeing all that. Yeah, very cool. If you enjoy the podcast, we also ask you can please rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. We'll be back with you Sunday night after the Jets game. Hopefully, if they win, right? If they lose, we'll have to.
Yeah.
A couple years.
For 2 years. Have to.
All right.
Find a hobby or something.
Yeah. See you guys in 2023. That's been the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk soon.